Hello and welcome to Gardening at 58 North. In this video I'd like to show you my Streptocarpus plant here. So as you can see, it's got a lovely bloom at the moment. It might be kind of hard for the camera to pick up that because it's very dark velvet colour. It's a very velvety kind of purple colour in real life. For some reason it's coming out as very blue on the camera, but I can tell you it's actually a very dark velvet colour. So this is my Streptocarpus. I've had it for probably a couple of years now. So I had an original mother plant. The original mother plant died. This is actually a cutting from it, and as you can see, it's doing quite nice. It's got lots of big healthy leaves. Now I've got it in a very small pot. I find that the Streptocarpus sometimes, when the pot is a little bit too large, the roots kind of rot off. So it seems to do better in a small pot. Also, it tends to flower a bit more in a smaller pot. You can see if I was to put this on the ground, the leaves kind of be in the way, and it would damage the leaves a bit. So what I've done is I found this interesting vase, which is like a tree trunk. Found that in a local charity shop, so I thought that looked quite nice. And I basically just popped that in there, and it just holds it so that the leaves can drape down. And it looks quite good. And I mean, in South Africa where this comes from, this is often growing in like cracks of rocks and things, so it's quite common for it to grow out of a crack in a rock and then its leaves to hang down like this. So it works quite well, I think. So yeah, I think the variety of this is called Kate or Katie, something like that. I've got the original label somewhere, but I seem to have misplaced it for now. But yeah, it's done really well. Over the winter it hasn't been flowering. It went through a bit of a dormant phase, just because it was so dark here in Scotland. But now the sun's come back up, it's starting to flower. And it should flower all summer long. Streptocarpus are really good houseplants. They used to be very popular in the day. So back in the 80s and 90s in the UK, loads of people had Streptocarpus plants, very popular houseplant. And you'll find a lot of older people in the UK, a lot of retired people still have Streptocarpus plants as a house plant. But it's a lot more difficult now to find these for sale in the garden centres. So the best way to get them is actually cuttings from friends or to go to specialist nurseries. But there are one or two coming up in garden centres. But they're lovely flowers, and this will be covered in a lot more than this. This is just the first flower of the year. I expect there'll be several spikes coming up over the summer, and it'll keep flowering right until October, November hopefully. And there'll probably be up to 5 or 10 flowers at any one time on this plant once it gets into full swing. And I'll try and do an update video when it does get into full swing and blooming at its absolute best. So for the rest of the year, the Streptocarpus just basically has very large leaves. It's a plant that has all its energy in its leaves, so it doesn't need a very big pot, or it doesn't have very big roots either. I think this is because, as I say, where it comes from in the wild, it kind of grows in rocks and crevices and doesn't really need much of a root system. So it's got very big leaves. A lot of the energy is stored in the leaves, so you'll notice sometimes if it goes into a new growth phase, the old leaves will die off, or sometimes half of them will die off. They kind of have like a cut-off line somewhere in the middle where the bottom half will die and the top half will stay alive. This one hasn't done it this year, and you can see the old ones are really large. These newer leaves are still growing, and they'll get to about the same kind of size as this one here eventually. So as it goes over the summer, it should have quite a lot of energy now in its leaves, and it's got plenty of foliage anyway for photosynthesis, so it should start firing out quite a lot of new flower buds. You can see, if I take the camera down here, hopefully it will focus. There is a new flower bud just coming up here, that little one there, and right down the bottom there's a little lump, that's some more flower buds coming up. So I'm expecting a good display. You can also see underneath here there's more flower buds, and what you find is with Streptocarpus, the buds actually come out of the leaf. It's kind of a strange plant. It's the leaves kind of grow their own shoots. There's not like a central rosette as such as you get with a lot of plants. You have a central bit where the growth comes from. You might have the leaves coming out the centre, but you tend to have the flowers actually growing out of the leaf stem. So it's a nice plant, Streptocarpus. There's hundreds, maybe thousands of different varieties. This one I thought was a particularly nice one because it was a nice velvet colour. Very dark. They're not normally quite as dark as this, but as I say, there's lots and lots of different varieties of Streptocarpus. Some of them have one giant leaf, and that leaf will probably be like 30 centimetres wide by 60 centimetres, and they have lots of little flowers coming out the middle. Other ones like this. This is the most common type that you'll see in houses, just the thinner long leaves. And yeah, they're really good houseplants. They flower all summer long. If you're lucky, they can almost flower year round. Very easy to propagate. You just take a little piece of the leaf, put it in the compost, keep it moist, and it'll grow a new plant. So yeah, really good house plant. Unfortunately not very popular these days, but that's probably because we've got Phalaenopsis orchids, and the orchids are just so showy, and they do a similar kind of job to this. They have a base of leaves with thrown up flowers, whereas these flowers you have to keep deadheading them. The popular Phalaenopsis orchids these days, they just keep flowering all the time, and you don't have to keep deadheading them very often. So that's probably part of the reason why these have dropped out of popularity. But I really like the Streptocarpus, so have a look in your local garden centre. If you see one, they're certainly worth a try. Very easy to grow, very hard to kill. Just make sure you don't overwater them, but otherwise a good looking house plant that's very easy to look after.